I am tired of running for shade. And aren't you tired of being hustled and played? And aren't we all tired of crying about how hard it is to be black in America, even if it looks like we've got it made?
Malcolm-Jamal Warner, dead at the age of 54 on a drowning accident while he was vacationing with his family.
Has this been difficult for you?
Yeah. Because when you watch someone who you know and love, go through what he's going through.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner, dead at 54 in what officials are calling a drowning accident while on vacation with his family in Costa Rica. The world knew him as Theo Huxtable, but his final message hit way deeper than just nostalgia. It felt like a straight-up warning. And now that he's gone, people are connecting the dots, and the questions are piling up fast. Why wasn't anyone paying attention? And why does it seem like every time a black celebrity dares to speak out, they suddenly go quiet? Forever? This wasn't just some random accident. Fans are saying it now feels like part of a much darker pattern that keeps repeating. Warner's sudden death has people shook and suspicious. He was found lifeless on Coley's Beach in Lyman, Costa Rica. Authorities say he drowned after getting caught in strong currents. The Associated Press said beachgoers pulled him from the water, but when emergency responders got there, it was already too late. He had no vital signs and was declared dead at the scene. But here's where things get unsettling. Just 2 days before his death, Warner dropped what fans are now calling his final warning.
And if for some reason you can't find a reason to smile, then that's probably the best time to be the reason for somebody else to smile.
In the last episode of his podcast, Not All Hood, he didn't just speak, he poured his soul out. And the things he said, they're haunting in hindsight. He wasn't just vacationing, he was on a mission. And that mission, to wake people up. In that final podcast, Warner opened up about a powerful exchange he had with spoken word artist Tamika Georgia Me Harper. When he told her the name of his show, Not All Hood, she instantly clapped back, "Ain't nothing wrong with the hood." That one comment hit him like a truck. It sent him into deep reflection about how the media's twisted narrative has painted the hood as dangerous, broken, and disposable. When in truth, the hood built the culture. Warner realized he wasn't turning his back on his roots. He was calling out a system that's made billions stealing from them. In his own words, the hood side, ultimately, historically, is what has always created American culture.
But freedom has its limits, so here we are, tear-streaked and salt-stained faces. Traces of trauma and pain lace our DNA like our black pride is cut and laced with self-hate.
That wasn't just a hot take. It was a direct shot at the industries that thrive off black creativity while erasing the people behind it. And he didn't stop there. Warner also shared how his idea of black excellence had changed over the years. He used to side-eye the term, thinking it was just about fame and money, but a recent convo about black soldiers being left out of Arlington cemeteries shifted everything for him. He started seeing black excellence not as something flashy, but as legacy, truth, and sacrifice that never got its proper recognition. Now with Malcolm gone, that episode feels less like a podcast and more like a goodbye letter that no one was ready for. That one line still gives people chills. Black survival is black excellence. Not fame, not trophies, not checks, just surviving. That's what Warner believed, and hearing those words now, after what happened, it hits way harder.
Reports that the 54-year-old was in Costa Rica on a family vacation and accidentally drowned while
like he knew something was coming, like he felt that clock ticking and wanted to leave one last truth before it ran out. Less than 48 hours after pouring his heart out on that podcast, he was gone. Just like that. And for so many who grew up watching him, the shock still hasn't worn off. Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just Theo Huxtable. He was the blueprint of the 80s and 90s black son. Smart, funny, flawed, but lovable. Theo was the calm in the chaos, always delivering those relatable, teachable moments. Whether it was dealing with dyslexia or getting that tough love from Cliff and Claire, Theo felt real. He was family. And that's the image that followed Warner for decades. But here's the thing. Who was the real Malcolm-Jamal behind the camera? When you peel back the layers, what you find isn't scandal or ego or chaos like so many other child stars. What you see is quiet pain and deep strength. He never caused drama, but he had to carry it. From personal heartbreaks to the massive fallout of being tied to a show now clouded by controversy, Warner handled it all with grace. He never played victim, never folded under pressure. He endured. He stayed grounded while so many others in his shoes got lost in the fame.
Can you tell me the fate of a people who consciously take the bait and embrace the very traits placed upon them by their captors, who by design are inclined to keep them believing they're second rates? I'll wait.
And let's be real, being forever linked to Bill Cosby, that's a heavy burden. But Warner never ran from it. He spoke carefully, with honesty. He knew what that legacy meant to him, to the culture, and to the people who still couldn't separate Theo from their own childhood memories. Instead of spiraling, Malcolm chose growth. He poured himself into his art, his music, his words. He turned pain into power. And now that he's no longer here to tell his story in person, that strength speaks louder than ever. The toughest controversy of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's career wasn't something he caused. It was something he got dragged into, and it hit hard because it involved the man who helped launch his entire career, Bill Cosby. This wasn't just Hollywood drama, this was personal. Cosby didn't just cast Warner as Theo, he shaped that kid's life. At just 13 years old, Malcolm was handpicked from a nationwide search. On set, Cosby treated him like a son, leading by example, dropping wisdom, keeping him grounded.
You know, the reason for the title is combating the narrative of Black life, Black culture that the media focus.
Cosby even warned him to skip trendy slang so the show wouldn't feel dated years later. And Warner later said, watching The Cosby Show with his own daughter, it still held up. That mentorship wasn't fake. It ran deep. So when over 50 women stepped forward accusing Cosby of sexual assault, the world turned upside down and Warner got pulled straight into the fire. He didn't come out with a loud defense, but he didn't cancel Cosby either. In 2015, his words were raw. He's one of my mentors. Just as it's painful to hear any woman talk about SA, whether true or not, it's just as painful to watch my friend and mentor go through this. That one quote told it all. He was torn. He wasn't making excuses. He wasn't denying the pain of the victims. But at the same time, he couldn't pretend Cosby meant nothing to him. I can't defend him, he said, but I won't throw him under the bus either. That's real. That's conflict. That's a man caught between what he feels and what the world wants him to say. Warner also slammed the media circus, saying the coverage was out of control and that people were treating all the accusations like they were identical. He wasn't defending Cosby's actions. He just wanted a more nuanced convo, not headlines built for clicks.
Not all hood. The Black community is not a monolith. There's so many levels and lanes to the Black community, and we wanted to have a space where we could acknowledge, discuss all of those lanes.
But what hurt Malcolm the most wasn't just the man behind the scandal, it was the legacy that came crashing down with him. The Cosby Show wasn't just a job, it was history, a cultural shift. It gave millions of Americans, especially Black families, a version of themselves they had never seen on screen. For Warner, that mattered deeply. We've always had The Cosby Show to hold up against that, he said, and the fact that we no longer have that, that's what saddens me the most. He feared the Huxtables would fade into fairy tale territory, just a memory. And let's not forget, this scandal hit his pockets too. Warner didn't sugarcoat it. He called out the hypocrisy.
It's difficult not to, not to feel something, have some kind of emotional response to, what this person is going through.
How directors like Woody Allen and Roman Polanski still had their work aired, while The Cosby Show got wiped from syndication. It's literally taking money out of my pocket, he admitted. So yeah, it wasn't just emotional, it was financial. The fallout touched every corner of his life, but Malcolm didn't stay stuck in bitterness. At first, he agreed the show's legacy was wrecked, but then a convo with his TV sister, Keshia Knight Pulliam, Rudy Huxtable, flipped his mindset. She reminded him of the impact, The kids who went to college because they saw the Huxtables. The families who felt seen. That kind of cultural shift doesn't just disappear. Warner later said, "Her saying that really shifted my perspective. That moment unlocked something in him. He stopped mourning what was lost and started honoring what was already built. That shift? That's growth. That's real healing." Warner learned how to separate the work from the man, and in doing that, he gave the audience permission to do the same. His journey through grief, frustration, reflection, and finally resilience wasn't performative. It was human, and that's why so many still respect him.
My biggest feeling is I feel sad for, just the way this whole, just the way the whole story has come about.
What really shocks people about Malcolm-Jamal Warner is what didn't happen. No drug scandals, no wild arrests, no TMZ meltdowns. In an industry where most child stars crash and burn by 25, Warner did the opposite. His calm, drama-free life wasn't luck. It was strategy. He moved smart, kept his head down, and stayed 10 steps ahead. From the moment The Cosby Show ended, Warner made one thing clear. He didn't want to be stuck as Theo forever. At one point, he even admitted he hated being called Theo. It wasn't just emotional, it was business. He needed to break that image if he was ever going to evolve. And evolve? He did. Warner didn't stick to one lane. He built a whole freeway. He directed episodes of classic shows like Kenan and Kel. He became a Grammy-winning musician in the R&B space, and when people thought he was just another nostalgic TV star, boom. He dropped a spoken word project that earned a Grammy nomination for Best Poetry Album. He kept showing up in dramas like The Resident, Suits, and Major Crimes. He even appeared in the critically acclaimed American crime story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson. Warner didn't play it safe. He played it smart.
After having had such a long path and long journey, you have something like this that you've got to contend with.
His roles kept growing, and with every step, he proved he was more than a childhood memory. He was a real artist. And get this, while his peers were spiraling, Malcolm was building. No rehab headlines, no messy court cases, no weird interviews. He credited all that discipline to his mother, Pamela. She managed his career and raised him with structure. She wasn't just stage managing, she was protecting her son from an industry known for chewing kids up and spitting them out. Even in the 80s, Malcolm was ahead of his time. Back in 1988, he dropped a book called Theo and Me, Growing Up Okay, but it wasn't about fame. It was about staying grounded. He used that platform to tell young fans to stay away from drugs, make smart choices, and think bigger. This was years before social media made positive messaging a trend. That silence around his name, that clean record, that was intentional. Warner wasn't just surviving, he was studying. He watched what destroyed other child stars and mapped out a life that steered clear of those traps. And the deeper he got into his work, the more powerful his voice became. That old 80s advice book, it eventually led to Hiding in Plain View, a spoken word album that got Grammy buzz.
As I remind myself that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. Like if you just take a minute to stop and take stock, I guarantee you can find at least one reason to smile.
His 2017 short film, You Can't Hear Me, didn't play it safe either. It tackled hard topics: mass incarceration, racism, and deportation. These weren't fluff projects. They were built on truth, pain, and awareness. And that awareness? It started early, thanks to his father, who made young Malcolm study icons like Langston Hughes. That's the root of his vision. Malcolm didn't just stay out of trouble, he turned silence into power and built a legacy most child stars only dream of. Malcolm-Jamal Warner's rise from child star to deeply respected artist wasn't some lucky break. It was the result of raw talent, purpose, and discipline. He chose growth on his terms, not Hollywood's. And while most people remember the Cosby scandal as his biggest storm, some of the most powerful turning points in his life, they weren't public. They were personal, and they hit hard. These heartbreaks didn't make the tabloids, but they changed him forever.
It was cool. We didn't really have scenes together, so I'd see her, and she was really nice, really cool. My best friend, I was talking about Chris,
One of the deepest losses came in his early adulthood, the death of Michelle Thomas. She wasn't just his ex, she was his co-star on The Cosby Show, playing Justine, Theo's on-screen girlfriend. But off-screen, they had real love. Even after their romantic relationship ended in 1994, they stayed incredibly close. In 1997, Michelle was diagnosed with a rare aggressive form of stomach cancer. Just 1 year later, at only 30, she passed away. Warner was reportedly by her side when it happened. He didn't turn that grief into a media story. He grieved in silence. That loss of someone so young, so close, so connected to his past left a deep mark. It likely played a huge part in shaping the calm, serious, emotionally grounded version of Malcolm the world would see years later. But love didn't stop testing him there. Fast forward to 2011, and Malcolm found himself in the middle of a very different kind of relationship, one the public couldn't stop watching. He and actress Regina King, both stars since their teens, became the couple everyone rooted for. They moved in together, things looked solid. But in 2013, everything blew up. Out of nowhere, rumors swirled that Warner told Regina and her son to move out. No warning, no build-up, just done. And then things really got messy when Regina told the world that he broke up with her on Valentine's Day and still had the nerve to send flowers afterward with a note that said, "I still love you." Her response? She threw the flowers straight in the trash. That breakup became a media circus. It was the complete opposite of his quiet loss with Michelle, and it hit differently. While Michelle's passing taught him the beauty of connection, the drama with Regina made him realize how ugly love can get when it plays out in public. After that, Warner shut it all down. He stopped sharing anything about his relationships. No Instagram shout-outs, no red carpet hand-holding, just peace and privacy. And when you look at those two love stories side by side, the message is loud and clear. One love showed him how precious life is. The other showed him how fast that same love can turn toxic when too many people are watching. One was a silent heartbreak that made him deeper. The other was a public mess that made him wiser. And both shaped the man he became. These life lessons didn't just shape Malcolm-Jamal Warner, they defined him. And now, fans are starting to piece it all together. And the pattern is way too loud to ignore. Every time a black celebrity steps out of line, starts telling the real truth, challenging the system, reclaiming what's theirs, something tragic happens. The lights go out, the mic gets cut, and just like that, another powerful voice is silenced. Warner wasn't just reminiscing on his podcast. He was rebuilding the narrative, creating space for black identity to breathe, to be complex, to be unfiltered, not through some glossy, cleaned-up Hollywood version, but through truth. Real, raw, unapologetic truth. And guess what? That kind of space, even when it's small, it threatens everything the status quo tries to protect. Then there was the Meghan Markle moment, small but sharp. Warner had once been asked what it was like working with her on Suits. At first, his answer seemed smooth. She was cool, she was nice. But when they asked if he knew she was black, that's when things shifted. The great thing is that she knew, he said. Sounds harmless, right? But listen closer. That wasn't praise. That was a quiet call out. Like he was saying she knew but didn't always show it. That being close to whiteness was a choice. And maybe, just maybe, Hollywood liked it that way. He didn't spell it out. He didn't have to. The pause, the tone, the weight, that said enough. And now that quote's being rewatched through a brand new lens. This is the same industry that hyped him as a teen, then kept him in the background once he started speaking with depth. The same system that praised his early roles, then barely flinched when he became a Grammy-winning musician, a spoken word artist, a director, a cultural thinker. And now, after everything he gave, his death got barely a whisper. No primetime tributes, no heartfelt specials, just a couple of quiet headlines and silence from the Hollywood elite. Malcolm-Jamal Warner helped raise a generation, and they gave him a footnote. That silence? It's loud now, because when you go back and listen to that final podcast episode, it doesn't just feel like a message, it feels like a trail, like he was leaving breadcrumbs. He talked about erasure, about how black soldiers fought for freedoms they never got, about how the hood, always demonized, is where real American greatness is born. He redefined success, not by what you own, but by what you survive. And then, just as the message was catching fire, he was gone. You really think that's just bad timing? Because history says otherwise. Chadwick Boseman, gone while challenging whitewashed narratives and redefining black royalty. Nipsey Hussle, murdered after pushing for ownership and community empowerment. Dave Chappelle, dragged through the mud for walking away from the machine and speaking his truth. And now Malcolm, who finally found his voice, finally had a platform, is gone.
I had this show and felt like people was trying to control me. I was freaked out. I don't know, I just had to get out of there. I just walked away. It says $50 million, it's all gone, I'm scared.
We're not saying it's a setup, but we are saying it looks real suspicious. Every time someone dares to pull back the curtain on Hollywood's fake version of blackness, every time they uplift the parts that don't make money, the parts that carry pain and power, something happens, and it usually ends in silence. Malcolm-Jamal Warner deserved more than a headline. He was more than just Theo. He was a man with a mission. And now that he's gone, all we've got left is that message. Let's not wait for the next voice to disappear. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss when the real stories drop. I'll catch you in the next one.